Good evening, students.
Good evening, sir.
So we'll get started. The last topic that we were seeing yesterday was the graph between force and displacement, right? Is there any doubt from yesterday's discussion?
No, sir.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Please tell.
Sir, what is the difference between axis, plane, and a frame?
Plane and
Frame.
okay. Axis is one-dimensional. Plane is two-dimensional. Space is three-dimensional. That is, here you will have either x or y or z axis. Plane means it will be a combination xy or yz or xz. Okay. Space is x, y, z all put together. So all the three will be available. Okay. Whereas when you talk about a frame, frame can either be 2D or 3D. In the sense, we generally use this word frame. See, for example, if I tell you, let's say you have a photo of your family on the wall. Generally, what do we call it as? We call it as a photo frame, right? I'm talking in a general context. Now, in a layman's language, we call it as a photo frame. So where you have the photo, whatever it is, right? In a similar way, if you have to study the motion of objects, so if you have to study the motion of objects, then we need to have a clarity of what are all the questions that we need to have a clarity of. Clarity is required based on, can you tell me? So what are all the clarities that we require? First, we need to know.
From whose point of view?
Sorry?
From whose point of view we are referring the object?
That's right. Or we say there is something called as reference point. Right. So whenever you calculate distance, displacement, or velocity, whatever, all these are relative terms. What do we mean by relative? Relative is with respect to something, right? So if I say the displacement of the object is, if I say the displacement of the object is 10 meter, means I'm trying to say that if you take a tape and measure the distance between A and B, that comes out to be 10 meters. You're able to understand what I'm trying to say. So you have a reference point here. Or else I can put my statement in this way: with reference to point A, or with respect to point A, the object has traveled a distance of 10 meters towards point B. I can use a language like this, right? So whenever you study about the motion, the first thing is you need to have a clarity about the reference point. But how do we generally get a point? Point is nothing but the intersection of two lines or intersection of three lines, right? If three lines meet, if I say three lines are concurrent, what does that mean? Or two lines are concurrent, what does that mean? They meet at a point, right? So for that, what we do is we take a particular frame of reference also into picture. Or frame of reference is taken into consideration. So what do I mean by frame of reference here, guys? Means, let's say the object has started at point A and it has started moving in this direction, right? So I can define different frames of references here. Like, I can take one to be in this way, right? if I take this as the frame of reference, then what I'm able to understand means I'm standing here. I have already predefined that any object moving in this direction, I'll call it as moving in positive x direction. If it is moving in this direction, I'll call it as positive y direction. So if an object is moving in this way, what will you say? It is moving in an xy plane, right? So xy plane is 2-dimension, and if I put a box around this, like how I told about a photo frame, then this will become the frame of reference. Did you able to understand this? Did you get a clarity of what is frame? Right? Generally, we don't use the word frame as a standalone term. It's used as frame of reference. So that frame of reference can be 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. I hope you are able to understand what is meant by 3-dimensional. Right? Let's say the point is here and the object is moving in a space. Let's say you're standing at one corner of the room. Let's say you have a cubicle room and you stand at one corner of the room and an object is projected like this, right? It is going and hitting the other end of the diagonal of the face, right? Then the object has traveled in 2-dimension or 3-dimension. Has the object traveled in it has traveled in 3 dimensions because it has x coordinate, y coordinate, and z coordinate.
Sir,
See,
but
for
y
you,
coordinate is 0, right?
where?
In this case, y coordinate is 0, right?
Where? Where is it 0? At which point? How can y coordinate be 0 at every instant? This is the motion of object.
Oh, okay, sir. I took the other one. Okay, sir.
Oh, you took this one, huh? No.
Yes, sir.
This is the motion of object. Yes.
That is 2D, right?
That is 2D.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Means if I draw perpendiculars from here, means if imagine if its shadow is traveling, okay, where will the shadow fall? The shadow will fall on the face only, right? That shadow will actually travel in a 2-dimensional plane, whereas the object is traveling in a 3-dimensional space. You're able to understand?
Yes, sir. So
So
here
this is all
the
about,
frame of reference is the cube.
yeah, we say in the tree is that room. We say the frame of reference is the room. That is in the shape of a cube or a cuboid, howsoever it is defined. But generally, you don't have 3-dimensional frame of reference in 11th and 12th. You will mostly read it only when you do a specialization. Okay. So as of now, you can restrict yourself to a 2-dimensional space, as 2-dimensional plane. So this is all about axis, plane, and axis, plane, space, and frame of reference. Okay.
Okay.
So shall we get back to our topic of work?
Yes, sir.
Now, see, let us do some problems based on the textbook. Let us do some in-text problems. See, example 6.1, find the angle between the force and displacement. So they have given force and displacement are measured in some unit. They didn't tell what it is. Okay. So how do you find the angle between the force and displacement when two vectors are given? Secondly, also find the projection of F on D. Okay. So let me explain the projection first of all. So 6.1, F vector is what? If you guys have textbook, look at it and tell me. 3i cap plus 4j cap minus 5k cap. 3i cap plus 4j cap minus 5k cap unit. And what is S vector or D vector, whatever it is? 5i cap plus 4j, 543. 5i cap plus 4j cap plus 3k cap. Both are in some random unit. We need to find the angle between F vector and S vector. Right. So we have already learned this in vectors. If two vectors A and B are given to you, how will you find the angle between them? Cos theta is equal to A vector dot B vector divided by magnitude of A vector into magnitude of B vector. right? So here, if I take cos theta, this will be f vector dot s vector divided by magnitude of f vector into magnitude of s vector. So how much is answer going to be? So what is f vector dot s vector? It is 15 plus 16 minus 15, the whole divided by square root of 9 plus 16 plus 25 into square root of 9 plus 16 plus 25. So 15 and 15 will get cancelled. 16 divided by 9, 25 plus 25, 50. So square root of 15 to square root of 50 is 50. So cos theta will be equal to 16 divided by 50, or cos theta. If you simplify it, what will you get? I think we can do it with
0.32.
8 divided by,
25.
I want 8 by 25, right? So theta will be equal to cos inverse of 8 divided by 25. Okay. So next step, the next question that they're asking is, find the projection of f vector on d vector. Okay. Let me explain what this projection is. Generally, you learn this projection next year in your maths in a chapter named vector algebra. Okay. So projection of a vector on b vector. Let us say there is a vector b like this. I'll call this as b vector. And let's say there is another vector like this, which I will call it as a vector. Okay. So when I say projection of a vector on b vector, the meaning of it is from the endpoints of a vector, because a vector has a magnitude. So a line segment with direction is generally called as a vector, right? So from the endpoints of a vector, if you drop a perpendicular onto the b vector, then this distance between the foot of the perpendicular. So this is one of the foot of the perpendicular, this then other foot of the perpendicular. This distance is what is called as projection of a vector on b vector. Okay. But how do you find that? That is more important. So what is the formula for projection? I hope you understood what is the meaning of it, right? So formula of projection of a vector on b vector. What is it? It's very simple, guys. Okay. Parallel to b vector, draw a line like this. Okay. Then can I say that this vector is some lambda times b vector?
Yes, sir.
Can someone tell me why I wrote it like that?
So because
Because
they are
what?
parallel to each other.
Yes. Did I draw an equal vector or a parallel vector? Did I draw an equal vector or a parallel vector?
Both, sir.
No. If I had told it is an equal vector, then lambda will not come. You remember the derivation of parallelogram law of vectors. If this is a vector and this is b vector, we draw two equal vectors to complete the parallelogram. Means this will be b vector and this will be a vector. Whereas here I didn't draw parallel vector. I didn't draw an equal vector. I drew a parallel vector. Sharia? Then the magnitude of this lambda times b vector is going to give us the projection of a on b. Correct? So if I take the angle between, if I extend it backwards and if I extend this backwards, if I take the angle between a vector and b vector as theta, then can I say that the angle between a vector and lambda times b vector is also theta?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, what is cos theta, guys? Cos theta is equal to a vector dot b vector by magnitude of a vector into magnitude of b vector. Can I write like this? Right. So this a vector, remember, this A vector can be resolved into two components. What are they? A cos theta and A sin theta. Correct? Guys, are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? Right?
Yes, sir.
Then can I say this A cos theta is nothing but lambda times B? A cos theta is the length, lambda B is the magnitude of this part. So when I say that, then can I say A cos theta is the projection of A vector on B vector? If that is the case, I take this A to the other side, then A cos theta will be equal to A vector dot B vector divided by magnitude of B vector. So this is the required formula. I hope it is simple, right? I showed you the derivation. I didn't give you the formula directly. This is the derivation part. Guys, are you done? Now, having the same point in mind, can you think of what is going to be the formula for projection of B vector on A vector? Let me see if you guys are able to think.
Sir, A vector dot B vector divided by A vector, magnitude of A vector.
Yes, correct. So what should be on the left hand side?
B cos theta.
B cos theta will be equal to A vector dot B vector divided by magnitude of A vector. So if you observe in both the cases, A dot B is common. So what will be in the denominator? Whatever is the vector after this term on. So whatever is the vector after the word on will be in the denominator. Okay. Now we will come back to the question. In the question they asked, what is the projection of F vector on D vector? What is the answer? Then F cos theta will be equal to F vector dot D vector, the whole divided by magnitude of
D vector.
That's right. So what is F vector? 3i cap plus 4j cap plus 5a. So 3i cap plus 4j cap minus 5k cap dot, what will be D vector? 5i cap plus 4j cap plus 3k cap, the whole divided by square root of 50. Divided by square root of 50. So what will be the numerator, guys?
16.
16 divided by root 50 unit. Okay. So that is the projection. So remember this formula, since it is MCQ this time, they can ask you. They'll be concerned only about the final answer. So please ensure you don't miss anything. Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir.
The next is we will see what is the relation between work done and kinetic energy. So we will see what is the relation between. Please write it down. This is a very, very important concept. So what is the relation between work done and kinetic energy? See, we know that work done is equal. Let me take a constant force into consideration. Considering work done by a constant force, W is equal to F into S into cos theta. Correct? So let us take a scenario like this. There is an object of mass m which is subjected to a constant force, is pushed through a distance s, right, in the direction of its application. So if I take a scenario like this, can I say cos theta is 1? Right. Now see, so work done is equal to F vector F into S into cos of 0 degrees. So it will be F into S. But what is F? F is mass into acceleration. Can I write it like this? Right. So since the object is subjected to a constant force, so when I say constant force, acceleration is also constant because F is equal to ma. When force is constant, acceleration is also constant because mass of an object is constant. So mass into acceleration, this will be equal to m into, what is the acceleration? Acceleration is v square minus u square divided by 2s. Accepted, guys? Into, you already have an s here. So s and s will get cancelled. So you will have half into mv square minus mu square. To write it better, I can write it as half mv square minus half mu square is the amount of work done. Okay, so can I say that work done is equal to change in kinetic energy? Can I say this?
Yes, sir.
Because it is final kinetic energy minus initial kinetic energy. So if you ask me, the actual formula for kinetic energy itself came from this derivation. Because how do we know that if mass and velocity are present? See, we say kinetic energy is the energy possessed by an object by virtue of its motion. The formula could have been mv square. The formula could have been mv cube. It could have been 1 by 3 mv square. Why is it only half mv square? It is because of this. So I can say this is a derivation of kinetic energy also. So from this we can say work done is equal to change in kinetic energy, and this has a name called as work energy theorem. Okay. It's called as work energy theorem. Means it is like this. Work done by all the forces in a system is equal to the change in kinetic energy of the system. Work done by all the forces in a system is equal to the change in kinetic energy of the system is what we call it as work energy theorem, or I can say that this is the statement for the work energy theorem.
Sir, can you scroll up a bit?
Sure. 1 minute. Right.
Sir,
Tell me.
sir,
me.
what is meant by the term net force?
Net force means sum of all the forces. Means here I took only one force, no, but it is not necessary that all the objects will have only one force acting on it. It can have multiple forces also. Sum of all the works done by all the forces is what we call it as change in kinetic energy.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, what if the acceleration was not constant?
Then it would have been, we should have applied a different formula. That's it. I'll show you how to do it. If you're done with this, I'll show you.
Done, sir.
Let's try to understand what happens when the work is done by a force which is varying, or I'll say work done by a variable force. Right. So what is the basic formula for work done by a variable force? Work done is equal to integral of F into ds. Correct? Now, I write this as integral of m into a into ds. Here, when F is variable, then acceleration is also variable. Right. So if I take that mass outside, mass into integral of a into ds. But the question is, how can I write a in terms of ds or something like that? So if you observe, acceleration is there, displacement is there. You are integrating acceleration with respect to displacement. So it is not possible for us to do unless you have an equation. Means acceleration equation is read at something s square plus s plus 1. Something like this is there, then you can do this integration. So in order to make this equation more accessible, what we will do is we will write it as dv divided by dt. Am I right? Acceleration is dv by dt into ds. ds is as left as it is. Now, if I take this portion, then what can I say this as? M into integral of what is ds by dt, guys? It is v
V.
into, you have integral with is equal to this value. Initially, let's say the velocity is u. Finally, the velocity is v. Okay. Then work done will be equal to, you guys tell me, m into integral of v dv is v square by 2 between u and v. So substitute the upper limit, it is mv square by 2 minus substitute the lower limit, it will be mu square by 2. Accepted? It is still change in kinetic energy. See, generally the change in kinetic energy is written as delta Ke. Delta represents change. Okay. So whether the work is done by a variable force or a constant force, what will happen? Work done is always equal to change in kinetic energy. Clear, guys? Please make a note of it.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Tell me.
The limits of the integral should be applied at the starting of the question, right?
You can apply it, but there is something called a shifting of limits. If I tell you now, you will get confused. That is a property of definite integrals. Here, it would have been Si to S final.
Yes, sir.
Then it would have changed. So Si to S final is decided by this ds. But here
Yes,
you
sir.
shifted this ds to dv, no? That is why the
Hmm.
limits also got shifted from displacement to velocity.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So that is a property of definite integrals. I can't tell you now.
Fine, sir.
Okay. Shall I move on, guys? Right? Shall I move on? Now see. Now I have to explain something called as conservative and non-conservative forces. So this is our next topic of discussion. So what do you mean by conservative force? A force is said to be conservative in nature if the work done by it in a round trip is zero. So a force is said to be conservative in nature if the work done by it in a round trip is zero. So let me explain what it means. Okay. Let us say there is an object of mass m projected in the upward direction with a velocity u. Okay. And the object has traveled, let's say, to the highest point, and the distance of separation between them is h. Okay. So there is a force called weight of the object acting on it, mg. Correct? Now my question is about work done by weight in a round trip. So what do I mean by round trip? Work done from A to A itself. So can I say this as work done from A to B plus work done from B to A?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what is the work done by the force from A to B? When the object is going from A to B, mg is in the downward direction, displacement is in the upward direction. So work done from A to B, can I say mg, that is, it's a constant force, weight is constant near the surface of Earth. So it will be force into displacement into cos theta, plus here also force into displacement into cos theta. So, but here theta will be different. I'll call this as theta dash, okay? So force is mg, displacement is h into cos of, you guys tell me, is going to be 180 degrees plus here again the force is mg, the displacement is h, and here it is going to be cos of 0 degrees.
0.
So this will be minus mgh plus mgh, which is going to give you a 0. So work done by the force from point A to point A, that is in a round trip, is 0. So from this, I can conclude that here we calculated the work done by which force? Gravitational force. We can conclude that gravitational force is conservative in nature. Okay, please write it down. Okay, please underline this. Gravitational force is conservative in nature. Okay. Now listen, guys.
Sir,
Tell me.
sir, why are we telling work done by gravity instead of work done by the ball?
Work done by the ball. How can it do it on? We never took the internal energy into consideration, right? Which force are you talking about here? The force that you spoke about is mg. Mg is the weight of the object. So who is exerting the weight on the object? It is the gravity, right? So that is why gravitational force is conservative in nature.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So gravitational force is conservative in nature. Now listen. Another important note to be taken is work done by any conservative force is path independent. That is, let's say the object is moving between 2 points A and B. This is one way. There is the second way. There is the third way. First, second, and third. Let's say the object is subjected to conservative force. Okay. Then what I can say is work done between the points A and D is same in all the three paths. Whether you take the object from first point to the second, whether you take the object from A to B along the first direction, along the second direction or third direction, if you calculate the work done, then work done will be the same in all the three paths. That's the first point to be noted. And secondly, work done by conservative forces depends only on the initial and final points of the object. Okay. Then we will see what are non-conservative forces. Before that, please make a note here. Other examples of conservative forces are electrostatic force, magnetic force, then spring force. All these are examples of conservative forces.
Sir,
Mm.
sir, gravity exerts force on the object which has mass, right?
Sorry, can you repeat it? Force exerted by gravity is the gravitational forces.
No, sir.
Force exerted.
Gravity exerts force on all the
Mhm.
objects which has mass, right?
Yes.
So it has to exert force on a balloon, right?
Yes, it does.
Then why doesn't the balloon come down?
Because the air inside it, there is a buoyant force, right? Inside. Buoyant force is dominating the gravitational force. That is why it goes up.
Okay, sir. Right.
Okay. There is a fluid inside it, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So non-conservative forces, write it down. Work done by a force in work done by a force in a round trip is not equal to 0, then force is said to be non-conservative. See, generally, conservative, as the name suggests, conservative is something which is preserved, right? So preserved, there is no loss of something, right? So here, conservative force, we understood what it is. So non-conservative force is something like this. Work done by a force in a round trip is not equal to 0, then we say that the force is non-conservative in nature. So let's understand what it means. Let's say there is an object of mass m which is subjected to a force F in this direction. Okay. And let's say this object is moving on a rough surface. Let's say it is moving on a rough surface. Then there is going to be a frictional force acting in this direction. Right. So when the object goes from A to B, right? So when the object goes from A to B, the frictional force is acting in this direction. This is when the object goes from A to B. The external force F is acting in the rightward and the friction is acting in the leftward direction. Now the question is, I am assuming that the surface is having a constant frictional force and the displacement caused to the object is S. Now the question is, work done by friction from A to B is how much? Small f into displacement into cos of how much, guys?
180.
So it is going to be cos of 180 degrees. So there is going to be minus F into S. So work done by the frictional force from A to B is going to be minus F into S. Now when the object is moved from B to A, let's say the same force F is applied in this direction, then in this case the frictional force will act in the rightward direction, right? So what is the work done by the friction from B to A? It will be F into S into cos of the same 180 again, because this time the displacement is in this direction and friction is in the rightward direction. So there's going to be minus F into S. So what is the work done by the friction in round trip? How much is it?
2 times of F, sir.
Minus 2 times F into S, which is a non-zero value. So what can you conclude from this, guys? So work done by the friction in the round trip is not equal to 0. So friction can be called as non-conservative force. Okay. So friction is a non-conservative force.
Sir, can you scroll up?
Sure. 1 minute.
Sir, I have a doubt. I don't understand why are we taking displacement as positive in the second case, friction from B to A.
I told yesterday itself, no. You will
Yes,
not
sir,
be
but
concerned about
still not.
because I told you, you will not even see whenever work is being done, you will write the magnitudes of force and displacement. Cause of that angle will take care of positive and negative sign.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Right, make a note of it.
Sir, can you repeat it, sir? Why are we not taking it as negative, sir? The
Because
displacement.
this angle will take care of the direction. See, if you take displacement as negative, then what will you write? You take minus s and cos 180 here. That doesn't make sense, no.
Yes, sir, it will become plus
Because
fs.
yes, you should either write f vector or dot s vector. If you write it like this, then you can take this as f and this as f. Observe this. This I can take it as f of I cap dot s vector. Like as you asked, I can take it as s of minus I cap. Now f into s, it becomes f into s into I cap dot minus I cap will be minus 1. Now it makes sense because I didn't involve the angle. I took the help of vectors. So when you're dealing in this format, then you take the unit vector will take care of the direction. Whereas when you're dealing it as a completely scalar quantity, then the angle will take care of the direction.
Sir, here in this system, we are initially moving the block from A to B and then bringing back to A again.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So friction is non-conservative in nature. Okay. An important conclusion that can be drawn is all resistive forces are non-conservative in nature. All resistive forces. So all resistive forces means I can say friction, air drag, viscous force, all these things are non-conservative in nature. Viscous means the force exerted by a liquid on a solid. Okay. The last topic for the day is energy conservation theory. You would have already learned this. You would have learned energy conservation. You would have not learned it as a theorem. So what does energy conservation state? Energy can
Neither be created nor be destroyed, but
be
can
destroyed.
be transformed from one form to another.
Yes, you can always convert energy from one form to another. For example, what will happen? You have an object and an object is dropped from a certain height. Potential energy will be converted to kinetic energy. You go and switch on you go and put the fan switch on. Then you can say the electrical energy is getting converted to mechanical energy, something like that. It can neither be created nor be destroyed, but it can definitely be converted from one form to another is energy conservation. But now we are going to see what is energy conservation theorem. So for that, the statement is like this. When an object is subjected to conservative forces, when an object is subjected to conservative forces, the total mechanical energy, the total mechanical energy of the system is said to be conserved. So please underline this word, conservative forces. So when an object is subjected to conservative forces, the total mechanical energy. So when I say mechanical energy, can you guys guess what it is? When I say the total mechanical energy, what does
Potential
it mean?
energy plus
Plus kinetic energy. Very good.
kinetic
So,
energy.
yes, means the total potential energy, the total of potential energy and kinetic energy of the system is said to be conserved. So that is the meaning. Okay. So you should always remember that you can apply the concept of energy conservation theorem only when the object is subjected to conservative forces. So let's try to see the proof of it. Let's say there is an object dropped from a certain height. Okay. And it is hitting the ground after traveling a distance h. Okay. And let me take some intermediate point. I will call this as capital H. And I will call this as small h. Okay. Or I can call anything is fine. This. So I'll take this as small h. Okay. Now tell me, what is the total energy at point A that the object possesses? It is a potential energy at point A plus kinetic energy at point A. So what is the formula for potential energy at point A? This we already know. It is mg into h. So if you take, so whenever you're talking about potential energy, you should always talk about the reference line. So with respect to the ground as the reference line, the height is mgh plus what is the kinetic energy at point A? Is 0 because the object is dropped. So it is mgh. Remember this as 1. Okay. Now what is going to be the total energy at point C? It is the potential energy at point C plus kinetic energy at point C. What is the potential energy at point C?
0.
Correct. Plus half into,
0.
yes, potential energy is 0, but kinetic energy is half mv square. But we know that from equations of motion, v square minus u square is equal to 2as. So v square minus, during the course of journey AC, what was the initial velocity of the object? It is 0. 2 into, what is the direction of acceleration due to gravity? It is downwards. And displacement is also in the downward direction. So in this case, what we can do is, for simplicity, you can say that the downward direction vectors are positive. So 2 into, can I write this as G into capital H? Accepted?
Yes, sir.
So V square will be equal to 2GH. If I call this as 1 and this as 2, I will take 2 and substitute it here. Then the total energy at point C will be equal to half into M into V square. V square is 2GH. So 2 and 2 will get cancelled. Answer will come out as mg.
Sir, can you once show a diagram?
Diagram.
Sir, does it necessarily mean at point B, the kinetic energy will be equal to potential energy?
At point
B.
need not be, no? Because that is some random thing. I'm only trying to say that the total mechanical energy at every point is same. So mgh, don't look at it like potential energy. Mgh is some number. Means if the total energy at point A comes out as 10 joule, then the total energy at C will also come out as same 10 joule. Because mathematically they have the same value. You're able to understand. So don't look at them like potential energy and kinetic energy. Okay. So since you asked what is the total energy at D, that is what I was supposed to do next. Now you guys tell me what is the total energy at D. It is the potential energy at D plus the kinetic energy at D. So what is the potential energy at D? Mg into,
Sir, if it is the midpoint, then h by 2.
it is not midpoint. I never told it is midpoint. I told it's some random one.
Yeah, okay.
Capital H minus H. If you take midpoint, now you are trying to prove something for a specific condition, then the law will not work. So mg into capital H minus H plus, what is the kinetic energy at D? Half m, I can write it as Vb square. Okay. Again, Vb square minus u square is equal to 2 into acceleration into displacement. So Vb square minus 0 square is equal to 2 into acceleration is downward direction. So what is the displacement of object from A to B? It is h. So can I write it as 2 into g into h, right? So then the total energy at D will be equal to mg into capital H minus mg into small h plus half into m into Vb square, which is 2g small h. So 2 and 2 will get cancelled. It will be mg into capital H minus mg small h plus mgh. This and this will get cancelled. Your answer is still mg into capital H. So you're able to understand. You take any point throughout the course of its journey, the total mechanical energy will have the same numerical value mg. Right? So this is the proof of energy conservation. But remember, you can apply this formula of energy conservation only when the object is moving under the influence of conservative forces. Okay. So I end the session with this. Those who want to copy will do one thing. This page alone, take a screenshot immediately because you have other class. Take a screenshot and we'll wind up the session. Let me know once you're done.
Sir, can you show from the diagram? I'll take a screenshot.
Can you take it now? Is it very
Yes,
small?
sir. No, no,
Fine,
sir.
sir.
I can see it.
Okay. Let me know once you're done. Done?
Yes, sir.
Good. Yeah, we can wind up this.
Thank you, sir.